Commander Al of the Expeditionary Force did not like human space stations. The corridors were too wide. The ceilings were too high. Everything was built for creatures that stood upright on two legs, with strange flat faces and soft skin that showed every emotion. It made him uncomfortable in ways he could not fully explain. His four eyes scanned the military demonstration facility as his squad marched behind him. 12 warriors, each one hand-picked from the finest units in the Empire. Their chitin-plated bodies gleamed under the harsh white lights. Their clawed feet clicked against the metal floor in perfect rhythm. They were the best of the best, and they knew it. The humans had sent a single officer to greet them. Lieutenant Colonel was his name. He was tall for a human, with gray hair cut short and lines around his eyes that suggested age and experience. He smiled when he saw the delegation, but it was a careful smile, polite, professional, the kind of smile that revealed nothing. Commander Al said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture, "Welcome to station. We're honored to have you." Al did not take the hand. Physical contact with other species was not the way. He simply inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Lieutenant Colonel, my government appreciates your cooperation in this matter." Lowered his hand without any sign of offense. He had clearly dealt with alien species before. Of course, the Galactic Concord benefits when member species share knowledge. Shall we proceed to the demonstration area? They walked through corridors filled with human personnel. Soldiers in uniform stopped to stare at the warriors. Some of them whispered to each other. Al's hearing was sharp enough to catch fragments of their conversations. Words like bugs and creepy reached his auditory membranes. He ignored them. Let the soft creatures talk. Actions spoke louder than words. The demonstration area was a large chamber with high ceilings and reinforced walls. In the center stood a simple table with several pairs of black boots arranged in neat rows. They looked unremarkable, plain, almost primitive compared to the advanced technology they used. "These are the gravity boots?" Al asked, unable to keep the skepticism from his voice. "Standard issue for our planetary marines," confirmed. "Nothing fancy. They help our soldiers operate in different gravitational conditions. We've been using variations of this design for about 40 years now." Sub-Commander stepped forward to examine the boots more closely. She was younger than the other warriors, eager to prove herself worthy of this elite assignment. Her mandibles clicked as she studied the human technology. "They appear crude," she said. "Our own gravitational compensation systems are far more sophisticated." Nodded without argument. "I'm sure they are. Technology is impressive. These boots were designed for simplicity and reliability, not elegance." Al watched the exchange with interest. The human was being diplomatic, but there was something in his tone that the commander could not quite identify. It almost sounded like he was holding back laughter. "We wish to test them," Al announced. "My government wants a full evaluation before any trade discussions begin." "Of course," gestured toward the boots. "They'll auto-adjust to fit any foot structure. The neural interface is intuitive. Most users figure it out within a few seconds." A looked at her commander for permission. Al gave a slight nod. She reached for a pair of boots and began fitting them to her digitigrade feet. The material shifted and molded itself around her lower legs with surprising precision. "Impressive adaptive technology," she admitted grudgingly. "Human engineers are practical," said. "They build things that work for everyone, not just humans. Makes trade easier." Once the boots were secured, guided to a marked platform in the center of the chamber. A circle of lights surrounded the area, and Al noticed various sensors and monitoring equipment positioned around the space. "This platform is connected to our environmental control system," explained. "We can simulate different gravitational conditions for testing purposes. What gravity level would you like to start with?" Al considered the question. They had a gravitational pull of approximately 0.4 standard galactic units. His warriors trained in conditions up to zero point 0.6 units. Going higher would be challenging but not impossible for someone of A's caliber. Earth standard, Al said. He had done his research. Human gravity was approximately 1 standard units. High, certainly, but his warriors were exceptional. Something flickered across face. Concern, perhaps, or maybe surprise. Commander, Earth gravity is significantly higher than standard. Perhaps we should start with something more moderate. My warriors are the finest in the Empire, Al replied coldly. We did not travel across 3 sectors to test ourselves against easy conditions. Held the commander's gaze for a moment, then he nodded slowly. As you wish. Sub-Commander, are you ready? A stood tall on the platform, her posture perfect, her confidence obvious. I am ready, human. Activate your simulation. The other warriors watched with expressions of pride. This was what they had come for, to prove that superiority extended to all things, including mastering primitive human technology. Moved to a control panel near the wall. His fingers hovered over the activation switch. The transition will be immediate. The boots will help compensate, but the initial adjustment can be intense. Are you certain you don't want to start lower? Activate the simulation, A commanded. Press the switch. The change was invisible. There was no flash of light, no sound, no obvious indication that anything had happened. But the effect was immediate and devastating. A's legs buckled. Her knees bent at angles they were never meant to bend. Her entire body seemed to compress downward as if a giant invisible hand was pressing her toward the floor. And from her throat came a sound that no warrior had ever made in front of alien witnesses. She screamed. It was not a battle cry or a shout of defiance. It was a high, keening shriek of pure shocked agony. The sound cut through the chamber like a blade, freezing every warrior in place. A collapsed, first to her knees, her leg joints groaning audibly under the strain. Then to her side, her chitin-plated body hitting the platform with a heavy thud. She lay there gasping, her 4 eyes wide with animal terror, her limbs twitching uselessly. Al lurched forward, every instinct screaming at him to help his fallen soldier. His hand shot out, blocking him. Wait, don't move her yet. Sudden movement under gravitational stress can cause spinal damage. The commander froze. He watched helplessly as his finest warrior writhed on the ground, unable to lift herself, struggling simply to breathe. Each breath seemed to require enormous effort. Her chest heaved and shuddered as if even the simple act of drawing air had become a monumental task. Turn it off, one of the warriors shouted. Turn it off now. Was already moving. His fingers flew across the control panel, deactivating simulation. The invisible pressure vanished. A's gasping became slightly easier, but she still could not rise. She lay on the platform, trembling, her exoskeleton making small cracking sounds as damaged joints tried to realign. Approached carefully, kneeling beside the fallen warrior. His movements were gentle, professional. Don't try to move. Help is coming. Al finally found his voice. What happened? What did you do to her? The human looked up at him with an expression that was not quite pity, but something close to it. Nothing, Commander. I just showed her what we live with every day. Medical personnel arrived within minutes. Humans in white uniforms with equipment that beeped and flashed. They moved onto a floating stretcher with practiced efficiency, speaking to each other in quiet, urgent tones. She'll be fine, assured the delegation. Some joint stress, possibly minor fractures. Our medical team can repair that easily. She was only under full gravity for 11 seconds. 11 seconds. The number echoed in Al's mind. His finest warrior had been broken in 11 seconds. The other stood in stunned silence. Their earlier confidence had evaporated like morning mist. They looked at each other with expressions that Al recognized all too well. Fear, confusion, the dawning realization that they had fundamentally misunderstood something important. The boots, Al said slowly, they were supposed to help her. Nodded, and they did. Without the gravitational compensation, she would have been seriously injured in the first 2 seconds. The boots reduced the effective gravity she experienced by about 15%. Al processed this information. His warrior had been crushed while wearing technology specifically designed to make conditions easier. She had experienced only 85% of what humans called normal. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "How do you survive such conditions?" The human's expression was unreadable. "Would you like to continue the demonstration, Commander? Or shall we discuss this further in a more comfortable setting?" Al looked at his remaining warriors. Their earlier contempt for human technology had been replaced by something else entirely. They stared at as if seeing him for the first time. This soft-skinned, two-legged creature who walked easily under a gravitational force that had shattered their elite warrior. "We will discuss," Al said quietly. "I believe we have much to learn." Nodded and gestured toward the exit. "Follow me, please. I'll have refreshments brought to the conference room." As they walked, Al noticed something he had missed before. The human soldiers they passed were not just standing around. They were carrying equipment, heavy equipment, crates and weapons and tools that the commander now realized must weigh enormous amounts under Earth gravity, and they carried these burdens easily, casually, as if the weight was nothing. One young soldier jogged past them, a pack on his back that probably contained more mass than herself. He was not struggling. He was not even breathing hard. He simply ran because he wanted to get somewhere faster. Al felt something cold settle in his thorax. He had led his warriors across the galaxy to evaluate human technology. Now, he was beginning to understand that the technology was almost irrelevant. The humans themselves were something else entirely. Something they had never encountered before. Something that operated under conditions that would kill most species in the conquered. The commander followed in silence, his 4 eyes watching the humans' easy movements with new understanding. And for the first time in his long career, Al of the Expeditionary Force wondered if his people had made a serious mistake in underestimating these strange, heavy-world creatures. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Human technology filled the room, devices that beeped and flashed and monitored things that Al did not understand. The lighting was dim, designed to help patients rest. Al lay on a bed that had been adjusted to accommodate her non-human body. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow and steady. The human doctors had given her something for the pain, something that made her sleep deeply. They promised she would recover completely. Al stood at the observation window, watching his fallen warrior through the transparent barrier. His reflection stared back at him, and he barely recognized the expression on his own face. It was not anger. It was not shame. It was something deeper and more troubling. Behind him, his squad clustered together in the waiting area. They spoke to each other in low clicks and whistles, the private language that used when they did not want outsiders to understand. But Al could hear them clearly. "How is this possible?" one warrior whispered. "The humans must have cheated somehow," another suggested. "Used some kind of weapon we did not see." "There was no weapon. You saw the same thing I did. It was just gravity." "Gravity does not work like that. Gravity is gentle. Gravity is what keeps your feet on the ground." "Not their gravity. Their gravity is a monster." The door opened and entered carrying a data tablet. He had changed from his formal uniform into more casual clothing, but his posture remained professional. He stopped near the commander and stood in respectful silence for a moment. "The doctors say she's doing well," said finally. 3 hairline fractures in her leg joints, some minor soft tissue damage. The treatment is already working. She should be walking again within 2 days. Al did not turn from the window. "She is one of our finest warriors. She has survived battles that would have killed most soldiers, and your gravity broke her in 11 seconds. I'm sorry, said, and he sounded like he meant it. We should have started with lower settings. I should have insisted. Why didn't you? Considered the question. Because you wouldn't have listened, and because sometimes people need to learn things for themselves. Al finally turned to face the human. Explain something to me, Lieutenant Colonel. Explain how your species survives this. Every moment of every day, you live under that crushing force. How is it possible that you are not all crippled and broken? The human set his data tablet on a nearby table and leaned against the wall. His body language was casual, relaxed, in a way that rarely achieved. We don't really think about it. We're born into it, so it's just normal for us. That is not an explanation. I know, paused, gathering his thoughts. Our bones are dense, much denser than bones from what I understand. Our muscles are constantly working, even when we're standing still. Our hearts pump harder just to move blood up to our brains against the pull. Everything about our bodies evolved to handle the strain. Al tried to imagine such an existence. A life where your own body was constantly fighting against the planet trying to pull you down, where every movement required extra effort, where just standing upright was a battle against invisible force. Your children, he said slowly, how do they learn to walk? Almost smiled. Badly. Human children fall down hundreds of times while learning to walk. They get hurt. They cry. And then they get back up and try again. It takes most children about a year to figure out how to walk reliably. A year. Al's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Our young can walk within days of hatching. In 0.4G, sure. Try that in 1G and see how it goes. Shook his head. Everything takes longer for human children. Everything is harder, but we get there eventually. The commander was silent for a long moment. His mind was racing, recalculating, reconsidering everything he thought he knew about humans. They had conquered 37 species. They were feared across 4 galactic sectors. Their warriors were legendary. And human infants endured forces that had shattered his elite soldier. Show me more, Al said suddenly. More. Your training programs, your combat operations, your daily routines. Show me what your soldiers do. Picked up his data tablet and tapped the screen several times. I can give you some basic information. Keep in mind this isn't classified material, just standard military fitness requirements. He handed the tablet to Al. The commander studied the display, his 4 eyes widening as he processed the data. Human soldiers were required to carry equipment packs weighing 40 kilograms during standard operations. Elite units carried more. They were expected to run several kilometers while bearing these loads. They climbed mountains. They swam through water. They fought in hand-to-hand combat while wearing armor that added additional mass to their already heavy bodies. This cannot be accurate, Al said. It's accurate. Those are minimum standards. Most soldiers exceed them. The commander scrolled through more data, training exercises, endurance tests, combat scenarios. Each one required physical performance that would be impossible for warriors under Earth conditions. What about the gravity boots? Al asked. You said they help your soldiers operate in different gravitational conditions. Right, they're useful for deployment on low-gravity worlds. Our soldiers can get disoriented when gravity is too light. They jump too high, move too fast, lose their sense of balance. The boots help them adjust. And on high-gravity worlds, his expression became strange, uncomfortable. We can operate in environments up to about 1.3 G without significant difficulty. With the boots and proper conditioning, some units have trained in up to 1.5 G. Al stared at him. Higher than your gravity, your soldiers deliberately increase the gravitational force they experience. For training purposes, yes, it builds strength and endurance. When they return to standard gravity, everything feels easier. The boots are not designed to help you survive high gravity, Al said slowly, understanding dawning. They are designed to make high gravity even higher. Nodded. The commander looked back at the tablet, then at the sleeping form of his warrior in the medical bay. I had been wearing boots designed to help humans increase their already crushing gravitational training, and even with those boots reducing the effective force, she had been broken almost instantly. I must contact my government, Al said. They need to know about this. Of course, we have secure communication facilities available. Lieutenant Colonel. The commander hesitated, struggling with what he wanted to say. My people have fought many wars. We have defeated many enemies. We have always believed ourselves to be superior warriors. Waited silently. We have never encountered a species like yours, a species that is built for conditions that would kill the rest of us, a species that considers crushing force to be normal, even comfortable. Al's voice dropped. What does that mean for the galaxy? What does that mean for species like mine? The human was quiet for a long time before answering. I don't know if I can answer that, Commander. We didn't choose to evolve on a heavy world. It just happened. We're not monsters. We're just people trying to survive, same as everyone else. But you survive things that would destroy us. Sometimes, shrugged. And we die from things that wouldn't bother other species. Diseases, infections. Our immune systems are aggressive, but so are our pathogens. Our bones are dense, but they break. Our hearts are strong, but they fail. Every species has strengths and weaknesses. Al wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe that humans were just another species, with advantages and disadvantages that balanced out. But looking at the data on the tablet, looking at his warrior lying broken from 11 seconds of what humans called normal life, he could not quite convince himself. I need to see more, he said finally. Before I make my report, I need to understand your species better. Nodded. We have several days before your ship returns. I can arrange tour, demonstrations, interviews with personnel, whatever you need. I want to see your soldiers train. I want to see how they live, how they work, how they fight. That can be arranged. Al handed back the tablet. One more question, Lieutenant Colonel. Yes. When you heard that we wanted to test Earth gravity, you tried to warn us. You suggested we start lower. You knew what would happen to us. I suspected. Why didn't you refuse? You could have simply said no. His expression became thoughtful, because sometimes lessons need to be experienced, not explained. I could have told you that Earth gravity was dangerous for. You wouldn't have believed me. Your warriors would have thought we were exaggerating or trying to hide weakness. Some things have to be seen to be understood. Al considered this. The human was right. If had simply told them that human gravity was deadly, they would have dismissed it as fear or deception. They had to experience it themselves. You are a teacher, Al said slowly, not just a soldier. All good soldiers are teachers, Commander. We pass on what we know so that others can learn and grow. Picked up his tablet and moved toward the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow I'll show you the training facilities. You might want to prepare yourself mentally. Why? The human paused at the door. Because you're going to see things that will change how you think about the universe, and change is never easy, even when it's necessary. He left the commander standing alone in the quiet medical bay, watching his warrior sleep, thinking about everything he had learned. They had come to this station expecting to evaluate simple technology. Instead, they had discovered something far more significant. They had discovered that some species were not just different from others. Some species were forged in conditions that would kill the rest of the galaxy. And those species had strengths that could not be measured by simple military comparisons. Al looked at his reflection in the observation window. He saw a commander who had believed he understood the universe, now facing the reality that he understood very little. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more uncomfortable truths, more reasons to reconsider everything they had built their empire upon. He was not looking forward to it, but he knew it was necessary. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. The formal dinner was held in a large room with windows that looked out at the stars. Human officers sat on one side of the long table, warriors sat on the other. Between them, dishes of food from both cultures were arranged in careful patterns. Al had no appetite. Neither did his warriors. They pushed their food around their plates, occasionally taking small bites, but mostly they watched the humans. The human officers ate with startling enthusiasm. Large portions of dense food disappeared quickly. Meat, vegetables, bread, substances that Al now understood required enormous amounts of energy to digest. The humans were refueling their bodies, feeding muscles and bones that worked constantly against the pull of gravity. "You're not eating," observed from across the table. "Is the food not suitable?" "The food is adequate," Al replied. "My appetite is simply diminished." The human nodded with understanding. A lot of information to process in one day. Ambassador Al, the diplomatic who had arranged this exchange, attempted to fill the silence with conversation. He spoke about trade agreements and mutual defense pacts, the economic benefits of technology combined with human resources. His words were optimistic, focused on the future. Al barely listened. He was watching a young human soldier at the end of the table, a woman with dark hair pulled back from her face. She was laughing at something another officer had said, her body language relaxed and comfortable. There was nothing special about her, nothing that marked her as exceptional. And yet she lived every day under conditions that had broken his finest warrior. After the dinner ended, Al found himself walking alone through the station corridors. He needed time to think, time away from the constant presence of both humans and the weight of the day pressed down on him almost as heavily as human gravity had pressed down on a. He stopped at an observation deck, a room with wide windows that offered a view of space. Stars scattered across the darkness like points of light on black cloth. Somewhere out there was with its gentle gravity and familiar surroundings. The door opened behind him. Entered, carrying 2 glasses filled with amber liquid. "Thought you might want some company," the human said, "or at least a drink." He offered one glass to Al. The commander accepted it, studying the liquid suspiciously. "What is this?" "Bourbon distilled grain alcohol, traditional human drink. Fair warning, it burns going down." Al took a small sip. The liquid scorched his throat and he fought the urge to cough. "This is unpleasant." "Most humans agree, at least at first," smiled slightly. "It grows on you." They stood in silence for a while, looking out at the stars. The human seemed comfortable with the quiet, not rushing to fill it with words. It was a quality that Al appreciated. "I have been thinking," the commander said finally, "about what your species means for the galaxy." "Oh." "The Empire was built on military superiority. We are coordinated fighters. We use numbers and tactics and discipline to overwhelm our enemies. This has worked against every species we have encountered." Waited silently. "But we have never encountered a species like yours." Al turned to face the human. "A species that lives in conditions that would kill us. A species that considers our greatest exertions to be ordinary daily life." "Commander, we're not invincible. Human soldiers die in combat all the time." "I am sure they do, but they die while operating under conditions that would already have killed most other species. They die while doing things that we cannot even attempt." Took a long drink from his glass. His expression was thoughtful, perhaps troubled. "I don't know what you want me to say. We didn't choose to evolve on a heavy world. We just did." "I know that is what troubles me." Al looked back at the stars. "The universe did this to you. Random chance, evolution, whatever forces shape life on different worlds. The universe took your species and pressed it down with invisible weight for millions of years. And instead of breaking, you adapted. You became strong, unimaginably strong by our standards. We don't feel strong, we just feel normal. That is precisely my point. The commander's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You do not even understand what you are. You carry burdens that would kill us. You move through environments that would crush our bones, and you think nothing of it. You consider it ordinary. Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than before. Commander, I understand this is difficult to process, but I want you to understand something about humans. We're not conquerors by nature. We're not looking to dominate other species. Your history suggests otherwise. Our history is complicated. We've done terrible things to each other, it's true, but we've also learned from our mistakes. The Galactic Concord gives us a chance to be part of something bigger than our own species. That matters to us. Al studied the human's face, looking for signs of deception. He found none. You truly believe this? I do. Then explain something to me. The commander turned to fully face. On your world, there is an old saying. I have read about it in our cultural databases. You say that what does not kill you makes you stronger. Nodded slowly. That's right. Everything on your world has been trying to kill your species for billions of years. The gravity, the climate, the predators, the diseases, everything. And yet here you are, alive and thriving. Here we are. If what does not kill you makes you stronger and everything has been trying to kill you for billions of years. Al paused, letting the implications hang in the air. How strong have you become? How strong will you continue to become? The human did not answer immediately. He looked down at his drink, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. I don't know, Commander. I don't think anyone knows. We're still figuring out who we are and what we're capable of. He looked up at the stars. But I hope we use whatever strength we have for good purposes. I hope we become the kind of species that helps others instead of hurting them. You hope? Yes, hope is important to humans. Maybe because we've faced so many things that should have destroyed us, we've learned to hold on to hope. Without it, we probably would have given up a long time ago. Al considered this. Hope was not a concept that valued highly. They preferred certainty, planning, measurable outcomes. But perhaps there was wisdom in the human approach. Perhaps when you lived under conditions that constantly threatened to crush you, hope was the only thing that kept you moving forward. I will recommend the alliance to my government, the commander said suddenly. Looked at him with surprise. You will. They have always sought strength. We have conquered because we were stronger than our enemies. But true strength is not just about physical power. It is about resilience, endurance, the ability to face impossible conditions and survive. The human waited silently. Your species has this strength in abundance. You have been forged in conditions that would have destroyed any other species in the conquered, and you have emerged not as monsters or conquerors, but as people who hope for good purposes. Al made a decision. They need allies who can stand beside us in any environment under any conditions. You are such allies. Extended his hand again, the human greeting gesture. This time Al took it. The human's grip was firm, his skin warm. We look forward to working with the, said. Together, we can accomplish more than either species could alone. Al nodded. He looked out at the stars one final time, thinking of his fallen warrior, thinking of everything he had learned in this place. They had come here seeking technology. They had found something far more valuable. They had found a species that had been shaped by forces beyond imagination, pressed down by invisible weight until they became something extraordinary. And they had found that this species, despite its incredible strength, still hoped for peace, still worked toward understanding, still reached out to other civilizations with open hands instead of weapons. Perhaps that was the most remarkable thing of all. The universe had tried to crush the humans, and they had responded by becoming strong enough to lift others up. Al finished his drink, barely noticing the burn this time. Tomorrow he would begin drafting his report to High Command. It would recommend full alliance with the humans. It would also recommend that the never, under any circumstances, underestimate these creatures again. They had been forged in a crucible that most species could not survive. They had become something unique in the galaxy. And they were still becoming stronger, every single day, with every step they took under the crushing weight of their impossible world. The commander looked at, standing beside him in the starlight, and allowed himself something that felt almost like respect. "Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel, for the lesson." Smiled, "Thank you, Commander, for being willing to learn." They stood together in silence, two species separated by evolution and environment but united by something new. Not quite friendship, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. And in a galaxy full of conflict and competition, understanding was perhaps the greatest strength of all.